Hey everybody, my name is Clyde. What is the baddest battleship at Tier 6? In today's video, Skada and I go in depth to talk about battleships and which Tier 6 BB is going to be best for clan battles this season. We are by no means experts, but we've collated a ton of data and done a ton of research, and we think that the information contained in this video is going to be not only useful, but entertaining for you as you're trying to work out which battleship is going to serve your clan best in the upcoming competitive season. Please let us know in the comments down below what ship you're taking and why. I genuinely want to know. And on top of that, hit that like button, hit subscribe, come hang out with us on Twitch. All right, guys, keep your eyes out for the destroyer, cruiser, and aircraft carrier videos as well. All right, let's get started. Cool freaking deal. We're going to talk about battleships next. And yeah, I think we're all good. I think I got the audio back correctly. Let's switch over to our presentation mode. We've got battleships here. So the big question on our mind today is, what are we going to do for battleships in clan battles here when we go into the new season on August 19th, 2021? This is the question, and we are here to talk about it. So let's talk battleships. I'm going to go down to our first slide here and get things going. Let's see. We got some stuff happening in chat. Yeah, we got Skada back. Okay, I'm going to talk about my first pick, which is the Mutsu. Mutsu is one of the battleships that has larger than 400 millimeter guns. In fact, it is one of very few at this tier. But Mutsu has 410s, and it has 8 barrels at that configuration altogether, with a 20.4 kilometer range. 30-second reload is pretty nice. Some of the battleships we'll see at Tier 6 have a 35-second reload, but obviously Mutsu is not penalized in that way. HE pen with those 410s is going to be 68 millimeters. It brings 58,000 hit points to the table. AA is a little bit weak. It's middling here at 43. Obviously, they're more details and data points than just the overall AA rating. But when we compare that against some of these other battleships, you'll kind of get a sense of where it slots in on the AA scale. Speed is about 26.5 knots. Concealment, not great, 14.8. You're not going to sneak anywhere in the Mutsu, but honestly, you want to be to where you can see all those bad guys and hit them with the 410s. Equipment is a repair party, so we're in battleship country now. Repair parties are going to be the norm, whereas in cruisers they were special. This one does 350 hit points a second for 30.8 seconds with a 73.72 second reload. Obviously that's tweaked a little bit with my perks. The normal is 28 seconds with an 80-second reload, but you can go ahead and get that configured. It does have torpedoes. I know. What? Torpedoes on a battleship? We got them on the Mutsu. It has 2 single torpedo launchers on each side. So 2 on the starboard, 2 on the port side. And it launches 1 torpedo at a time. They go 7 kilometers at about 57 knots. And the firing angles are not particularly generous. You're going to look at these angles being pretty much on your like 90 degrees, like due west, due east, if you're thinking of the front of the ship as north, with a little window around them. So that's something to consider when you're thinking about these. The torps aren't going to be the most usable, but you do have them. So if you get into a scrum, you can throw a couple of torpedoes out one side or the other. The armor is a little bit lighter than what we'll see with other ships, and we'll talk about that. Although it is a more advanced design, Mutsu does have a vertical armor plate sandwiched right next to an angled armor plate. So a shell that wants to penetrate the vertical armor plate needs to come in at this angle, and a shell that wants to penetrate this angle has to come in at this angle. And it's impossible for a single shell to come in at 2 angles simultaneously. It can only come in from one approach, and thus that armor is pretty good. But even with that advanced multi-angle armor design like we just described, the Mutsu's armor is thinner than that of comparable ships from other nations, and thus it can still get citadeled and AP bombed and things like that. So Mutsu is available in the premium shop. It's about 27 bucks. One of the things that we've talked about again is I'm not trying to make this an advertisement. I'm trying to send people to the premium shop to buy premium ships, but at Tier 6, a premium ship is not that much money for some folks. And if you're one of those people and you've been eyeballing the Mutsu anyway, this might be a good opportunity to look at one. Skada, if I still got you, what do you think about the Mutsu for a Tier 6 clan battleship as your main battleship?
I think gun caliber's king with battleships in competitive, right? And so the 410s, even though they have what in essence is a World War I shell on the Mutsu. They don't have like the guns off the Mutsu are the same as Nagato. They don't have the same kind of shells as Nagato, I don't think. I think the shells are a little different. But this is a ship that can use the AP to effect. If you're going to get shots on another battleship, you're going to be able to do some overpens on battleship decks. I think pretty much every battleship deck, with maybe the exception of West Virginia. I can't remember. We looked at this, but
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
going to have a lot of overmatch with it, which is a good deal. We played Mutsu this last weekend some in the
Hmm.
brawling mode. I don't think that the stuff I was doing with it in brawling mode necessarily translates to how you would play it in clan battles. It has a lot of range, so in clan battles, I think you'd hang back and you'd use its range, and you'd play it like a more traditional U.S. or Japanese BB in that regard. Um, late, mid to late game, if you do need to move in with it, it does have those comical torpedoes that fire directly 90 degrees from the side and shoot like every 20 something seconds. They reload really quick. Um, I actually,
Right.
for clan brawls or for 3v3 brawls, built my Mutsu for secondaries. Its secondaries will stretch out to like 7.5 kilometers with a flag, and was experimenting with IFHE on those secondaries, which makes them pen they pen at least 26 millimeters. So at tier 6,
Right. That's
um, the
critical.
secondaries the secondaries would pen all of the battleship bows and sterns that it would face in a brawl, which I thought actually worked really well. It was kind of funny. It cuts the fire chance down, but it's an old brawler shenanigan there when you can go in and you can actually pen the enemy ship with your secondaries when you're close, and the secondaries are only able to hit the side of the ship at that point. So I just don't think that works in clan battles as much. Um, I think your points are better spent on a straight survivability build, with
Mm,
maybe not concealment, because I don't know how much that matters with CVs, but definitely with
right.
fire prevention and maybe the extra heal. I don't know. A lot of times clan battles don't last long enough to cook off that many heals, though.
Yeah, and the extra heal could be a possible thing that you're going to want because you're going to be, if you're doing a one battleship configuration, if you're going with a carrier and a battleship, you're going to be the recipient of potentially a lot of fire. They're gonna clean out ships on their way to you, and or if they can reach you from range, they'll do that. But I like your pitch about building a standard survivability build with this. Mutsu, you're right, 20.4 kilometer range, and if you've got a player, a guy or gal who can click on something and hit it from range, from that 18 to 20 click range, they can sit in the back in a pocket where they've got good line of sight on multiple angles and wait for their team to set up a beautiful shot where they can just throw that touchdown pass right into the citadel of whatever ship they're looking at. Especially with those 410s, that overmatch is huge. I do think the AA and the armor is a little bit weaker on this than some of our other picks. But I know people who are going to be like, yeah, but 410s. So I don't know what other stat you would ever look at. And those people might be right if they're accurate. Oh no, Atari Beer Pong. Thank you for the raid and trusting me with your followers. Today we're talking about tier 6 clan battles, and we're talking about battleships right now. So welcome, raiders. Um, so yeah, I think Mutsu is going to be a strong pick. It's got those 410s. It's going to be a great battleship for people who know how to put it to good use. And I think you're right. Survivability is going to be the key build for this. But Neki is asking about Issei in chat. I think Issei is not quite very good at being a carrier and not quite very good at being a battleship. And I think in a competitive mode, the trick, the game, the fun that is Issei is gonna not lead to victories, and so I think you're gonna see people leaving Issei on the sidelines. But I don't know. You could wind up seeing somebody haul it in there. I think in my experience, it wouldn't be as effective. Skada, any Issei thoughts for Neki?
Yeah, Issei has the best anti-aircraft suite of any tier 6
This
battleship in
is
the game.
this is very
And
true.
so in the event that we're encountering two carriers, if you're fighting clans that run two carriers and you're on running one carrier in a battleship and that battleship's Issei, I don't think it'd be horrible. I think Issei's main battery is kind of wonky because it's like, what is it, 2/3 of a Fuso or something like that. Um, but I do think the torp bombers on it are fun to play. I enjoy playing Issei. I don't know how it would work in competitive. It might be interesting, but I do know that it has really strong AA.
It does. I think the rating, you might have mentioned the number. I was chatting in here with the Raiders, but 76, I think, is the number. It's huge.
Yeah,
Very,
it's like
very capable.
76 or 77. It's continuous as 220, and it puts out 6 flak puffs, which is insane at tier 6. Nothing
It's
like
incredible.
most of the
Yeah.
tier 6 battleships don't put out like 5, right? It's pretty good.
Yeah, no worries, Nikki. By all means, if chat, especially for you folks who just joined, it's a pretty open conversation. We're trying to keep our eyes on chat. Right now, we're walking through battleships. This is the first of the battleships that we've talked about. We've already done cruisers and destroyers. If you missed that and you're interested, I will do that on YouTube. Maybe you're watching this on YouTube later. Find those videos elsewhere on my channel. Yeah, we're going to go through our number 3, number 2, number 1 picks for battleships. So by all means, ask any questions you guys want. We may or may not be able to get to all of them, but we'll do what we can. So anyway, that was Mutsu. I think Mutsu is going to show up. You're going to see people take Mutsu. So let's jump up here to our next battleship. If I can get on the right application. There we go. Skada has selected Andrea Doria, Italian BB with SAP. Tell me about it.
Yeah, so quickly hear me out on this as I put in the note, right? I don't think a lot of people like Andrea Doria, and I'm not totally sure I do either, but I don't like a lot of tier 6 battleships in the game. And the ones I do like, I had already picked for higher numbers. And I thought, what's one that could fit in here that maybe could do something different? And I was looking at Andrea Doria, and I did enjoy Andrea Doria when I played that ship in the Italian line. It's got some weird quirks, right? Andrea Doria's got 10 barrels, but they're only 320 millimeter.
Yeah.
It does have 17.2 range, and it does have pretty good sigma, right? When we're talking about shell dispersion, its shells aren't terribly. It has pretty good accuracy, but it has sap, and so the cool thing with the battleship sap at this tier, because the guns are only 320, the pen of that battleship sap is 84 millimeters. So
Right.
if you're trying to use that like on the waterline of another battleship, you're going to shatter that sap. But one thing you're not going to do is overpen any of the light cruisers you might face. You should just shred them with this sap. It should be pretty powerful against them. If you shoot other battleships that you face in the bow, if you know where to aim at the upper water line or at the bow or at the superstructure, it's going to work fine for you. The sap shells on the ship actually have a higher maximum damage than its AP. Its AP is not bad, but it's 320 AP, so it's not great. So I think if I was playing this, if I was and this is in a world where maybe you're running a 2 battleship config and your other battleship is like a Mutsu, right? Like we just
Yeah.
talked about,
Yeah.
something that's
Yeah.
got a lot of overmatch. Andrea Dory is really concealed, right? It's a 12.1 concealment with the perk. It's a pretty fast battleship for tier 6. And again, this also falls under the auspices of, if you look at ships that are tech tree that have been put in the game in the last, say, 2 years versus 4 or 5 years ago, they're probably better. There's probably something about them that make them better. Not all of them, but there's probably some gimmick.
Yep.
And so I don't know if we'll see Andrea Doria. She doesn't have a huge hit point pool, but I like the idea of playing her as a support battleship or a secondary battleship if you were running a 2 battleship config. If you're running a 1 battleship config, which I think a lot of people will, and have a CV, at least one CV, it may not be that 1 battleship. I don't know if it makes a ton of sense, although it really can punish the cruisers with this app, and I think that's interesting about it. And yeah, that's why I had it on my pick. I just wanted to talk about it mostly.
I almost put it on my list too. And I played through Andrea Doria. I didn't like it, but on paper, I feel like I should. And in doing some research for this, I played a different battleship, which we'll talk about in a minute, which has good armor. And I was facing an Andrea Doria, and it was beating the crap out of me, taking my hit points and my lunch money. Like, I was in trouble from this Andrea Doria that was chasing me. Now, he had a few friends, and I was on my own because my team was getting raffle stumped. But Andrea Doria with that 84 millimeter pen, is that what you said? But that, 84 millimeter sap pen is going to get some work done. And it can do it. So like, it's pretty capable. And that 84 mil, you talk about waterline on battleships. We got to remember that battleships have, 150 to 300 at this tier. Vasco, thank you for the subscription. We appreciate it. Welcome to the stream. We'd love to have you here. We're glad that you are with us. But that waterline, you're going to have 200, 250, 300 millimeters of armor. So if you're using that sap, you're going to want to put it on places that 84 mil can pen. So know that number. Maybe take a look at some of the battleships that we're talking about on this list, because you're going to see them, we predict, in clan battles. But yeah, I struggled with Andrea Doria, but I know other players are really capable in it. So I'm glad it's on the list. I didn't add it as one of mine, but I'm glad that we're talking about it today. So I think we'll roll on to our next next battleship here. And Basco, I'm glad you bought the Lazo. It's a good boat. I hope you enjoy it. It's a lot of fun. Yeah, let's hit Basco with some pows. Thanks for the subscription, bud. Okay, so both of us love the Prinz Eitel Fredrich. You just talked about the Andrea Doria, so I'll walk through this. I love the PEF, and I like the PEF because I'm not like really a heavy battleship boy kind of player. I like battle cruisers, and PEF fills that role beautifully. It has the smallest guns of any of the ships we're going to talk about, with the exception of Andrea Doria, but it has the SAP gun, so it's a little bit different. So it's got 8 350 millimeter guns. They're 17.8 kilometers in range with a dispersion of about 222. They reload a little bit faster than your average battleship at 28 seconds, and the HE pen is 88 millimeters. It's that high because of the German quarter pen, which allows it to pen with HE through a lot more armor than similar sized guns from other nations. AA rating, I said here 70 rating, best at tier 6, but Skada reminds us that the Issei has like a 76, 78 rating, something like that. So we know Issei has better AA, but this is the best that we're talking about today. So I'd want to, make an asterisk next to that because it's not actually the best at tier 6. Does 176 damage per second with 5 of those flak puffs. Is it 76, Neki? Thank you. Neki giving us the cold facts. 76 AA rating on Issei. 5 flak puffs coming from the AA as well, which really is a great way to shred those planes. Those flak puffs are going to be the thing that helps to slow down the enemy carrier the most. For speed, she's pretty quick, 29.4 knots. Concealment's not that great, but as Skada points out with carriers, and we expect to see carriers in clan battles, that's not going to be a big deal necessarily. So hull repair is fair. It's not quite as good as the one for the Mutsu at 313 seconds. Again, I've got mine augmented with Captain perks, making it 30.8 and 73.7 instead of 28 seconds and 80 seconds. There. Again, no tricks, no fuss. It's just a reliable little maneuverable kind of battle cruiser, battleship. I love the PEF a lot, and I actually feel like it's pretty accurate. That dispersion feels comfortable to me, and especially if you add the main battery aiming systems module, it brings that dispersion in, which is really helpful. Skada, you also selected PEF. What are your thoughts? What did I leave out? What do you want to talk about or focus in on?
No, I like PEF as well. I like it a little in different ways than you do because I run my PEF as a secondary build. So currently with secondary build PEF will reach out to 8.5, which is pretty good at tier 6. I think the only other thing that gets out that far is Bayern. And as of tomorrow in 10.7, we'll have new captain skills that address some of the problems that we've had with secondary ships since 10.1. Which I'm super excited about because I love secondary battleships. Like I would continue, even in competitive, I would continue to run it with my secondary build, with the build that I was using on it in brawls. I wish the guns had a little bit more pop, but I accept that you're trading that for speed. I think the armor's okay. We'll talk probably more about the armor profile on this ship versus my number 1 ship when we get to my number 1 ship. But the armor on this is pretty good. And it's got nice speed. It doesn't have exceptional maneuverability, and I always feel like it's missing a consumable. Like it's a true, it's a true like 4-button battleship, right? It's got 1, 2, 3. It has a heal, it has a repair party, it has HE and AP, and that's it. Like it feels like it should have hydros or defensive AA or something,
torpedoes, something.
I think in normal like tier 6 rando play, like it has it, at least on my account, like I think I have the most planes shot down at tier 6 is my PEF. It's got a great AA suite. And so I like the PEF. I don't know. I don't think I have anything else more I can add about it that you didn't already talk about though.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly walked over the core chunks, but I'm glad you brought up the secondary build thing. I didn't talk about that. I'm thinking about reconfiguring mine to be in a secondary build now that those are coming back, and that's something that we're going to get well, I'll cover it really quickly, Atari, and Skada, jump in if I misspeak. But essentially with the secondary changes that are coming in this build, as you get more hits, your guns will get more accurate, and will they also reload faster, Skada? Or is it just more accurate?
So they're changing right now on Battleship Captain config. There's 2 4-point skills that kind of have to do with brawling, right? There's manual fire. I don't know what it's called. It used to be manual fire for secondaries back in the old day.
Yes.
And so and then next to it is the brawler skill, and the brawler skill juices your secondary reload and then boosts your mains reload when you're within a certain range, or when somebody's inside your secondary cone. So they're taking the secondary reload off of that skill and moving it to the 4-point manual secondary skill. Okay. So for starters, then I'm probably never going to take that other one again that just does the mains reload. I'd rather have fire prevention for those 4 points, right?
Sure.
And so what you're going to have on that new 4-point skill is you're going to have that like 8 or 10% reload buff, and you're also going to have the accuracy magic. And so what they're doing with the accuracy now on that skill, when you lock your secondaries onto your target, your chosen target, your manual target, um, as you're firing at that target over time, the accuracy is going to go up. It's like the gunners are dialing it in. And so it doesn't have to do with how many hits you get. It's strictly while that guy's targeted and visible and the guns are firing. And
Okay.
so over the course of I think it's 45
Nice.
seconds. Yeah, over the course of 45 seconds, there's certain time, like after 20 seconds, the accuracy jumps and it jumps and it jumps. Now, once you get to that 45-second point, it's only, this is kind of the sad part, it's only like a little bit more accurate than it was before 10.1.
Hmm.
But it's there, right? And you can't get there today. Like secondary accuracy sucks
Yeah,
today
I was gonna
because of
say if
those
they could just
changes.
get me back to 10.1, that might be enough to make me happy again, right?
Yeah, and I don't want to butcher the chatter's name. I'm not good at
Z-Gub.
that, but
We'll go Z-Gub.
yeah, but he's right. When you switch targets, you're going to only lose 20% of that accuracy, and then when the clock will build up again. If and that's, I believe it's only 20% if the target you're using them on dies. If you switch targets to one without that target dying, then you have a bigger drop in accuracy that you have to build back up. If the guns go silent, like if it's a destroyer that you had locked into and it smokes up and you lose visual, there's like a 10 count or something before it resets.
Hmm.
If they're okay, no debuff on switching. Yeah, I haven't played with it in a little bit. I need to go brush up on my stats. But anyway, it's a big boost. And plus, you still keep the thing that they added in 10.1 where the secondaries on the off side of the ship that aren't on the right side to be targeting still shoot. So they're still shooting at mediocre accuracy at stuff on the off side of the ship as
Yeah,
well.
yeah,
But your manuals are actually going to get more accurate and be more useful. I played with this on PTS last weekend or 2 weekends ago
yeah.
with Kerr first. It brings Kerr first back from the dead for me. I unfortunately I didn't have my whole port on the PTS, so I couldn't test it with Palmer and I couldn't test it with Ohio and Massachusetts. I didn't have any of the American secondary ships. It actually
Right,
worked really
right.
well with all. It worked really well with Alsace. It worked really well with Colombo with the Italians. Even though the Italians have incredibly
Yeah.
small secondaries, the accuracy was there and it lit a lot of fires. So I'm really excited about it. And so I think what that will do for PEF, in if I talked a lot last weekend when we were playing brawls and I was using PEF, I was going, geez, I wish I already had that skill. I'd be destroying these people that much faster.
Well, and especially in brawls
And I
where
think
you're so close. Sorry, continue.
no, I'm just gonna say I just say I think that I wouldn't go away from my secondary build on this ship in clan battles. I do not necessarily I don't always think that clan battles should have brawling secondary battleships though.
Yeah, I mean, clan battles is very a very calculated and risk averse environment for you to be like, well, let's put her in, put her in, top gear. Let's get in there. It can be a little bit dangerous to do so, and that mechanic definitely motivates you to pursue those, to stay within range, to pursue those targets as they try to get away from you, to keep that ticker going. Right? I mean, uh, there's definitely some motivation for that for sure.
No doubt.
Nice. Okay, I think that's our PEF and secondaries discussion. But yeah, I went with you over to the test server and played Bismarck. I played just a couple of battles, I think, and had a good time. It reminded me of the old days. So, even if all of the subtleties of those mechanics are maybe kind of went over your head or whatever, just note that secondaries are going to be more fun here again in the future, and play a few battles and figure it out, and it's going to be cool. And I think that's something to note as we look at clan battles. Let's roll on to our next pick. And this one is West Virginia 41. This is both of us. I walked over PEF initially. Why don't you take this one, Scott?
West Virginia 41 is an interesting premium. It's kind of a Colorado at tier 6. It has 4x2 to 406s. So again, this is the idea that bigger guns are going to be better in this. The only thing that has bigger guns than this is going to be the Mutsu with the 410s, and they're virtually the same.
Yeah.
This has American heavy AP shell arcs, though. It doesn't have as much range as the Mutsu. It does have a spotter, though, and I use that to effect early on in matches when you're a little further out because this is a slow American battleship. Um, 30-second reload, that's pretty standard. It has pretty good HE actually. Like if you need to go to HE on it, American Battleship HE isn't British, but it's not terrible. Like you can light fires and do stuff with it and smash a lot of AA. And I talked about that in our cruisers segment. But again, we don't shy away from using a little battleship HE in this mode to try to clean some AA off the deck of the other battleship to help your carrier out. AA rating on this is a little anemic. It's more cruiser-esque at 44, 103 continuous, and 3 puffs. It's kind of rough. Again, she's slow at 21 knots. Her concealment's not great. 14.3. I don't know if that's with or without perk. I think that actually might be with perk because it's not great. It's pretty rough concealment on this ship.
I'll double check. Yeah, 15.9 without the captain perk.
Yeah. Repair party, it's got a heal. It's battleship. Has a spotter. It does have 26mm deck armor, and that's interesting at this tier because ships like the cruisers that Clyde talked about earlier, that have like 150-ish caliber HE spam, are going to struggle to pen that. They're not going to be able to, right? And so that's going to cause them to have a lot of shatter shells and cause less fires and things, which is important. There's some downsides to this ship in my estimation. Again, the speed and turret rotation. But against sixes, this ship's overpowering. Really, it's pretty good against sixes. If you're used to playing U.S. battleships in this tier range, if you've played Colorado a lot, this is just a Colorado at tier 6 with a couple of tweaks like the range and the AA, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Hang on, I'm answering a question in chat. Zgub says, cruisers with 152mm guns can pen the deck with IFHE, and that is absolutely true. Shatter, you can still get a fire if your shell shatters, so I want to point that out. Remember that. But you could put IFHE on those cruisers to pen the deck of this ship, or you can try to target the superstructure. And I encourage you, if you're going to be playing a ship with 152s in clan battles, to go in and look at these battleships in the armor profile viewer in the game, because the superstructures on the US battleships are incredibly small. You're going to have a hard time hitting those at range unless you're just a real eagle-eyed shooter, and maybe you are. And if you are, good for you. Please demonstrate, create a YouTube video for the rest of us, that kind of a thing. But definitely that 26mm armor is significant. So if you're looking at a German ship, the Makarov gets to keep the German pen, or something with larger guns than the 152. So Trento or any of the 1 or 203 ships you talked about, Molotov with its 180s, you'll definitely be able to get in there and get work done. Hey, Malarkey, welcome to the stream. That is definitely one way to do it. I've got a monitor about this wide too, but I don't get to use all of it when I'm streaming. That is definitely a way to go. But yeah, I think like Skada, I think West Virginia is going to be a dominant ship. I took it out several times this last week to try to mess around with it and kind of get comfortable with it. The slow speed is a problem, but man, do those guns slap. And to talk about the HE a little bit, 36% fire chance with this, which is the highest of any of the battleships that I looked at seriously for this analysis and for this presentation that we're sharing with you guys. Podcast, if you want to call it that, this video. 36% fire chance, and then the HE alpha, the max HE damage is 5,700. So you'll do damage, and you'll likely get fires if you're putting a salvo of this thing on any target, really. But yeah, scraping the HE or the AA mounts off of the enemy battleship is going to be a worthwhile tactic, as Skada points out. Hey, Nemesis, welcome to the stream and our analysis today. Skada, any final thoughts on West Virginia based on the conversation we just had before we roll on to the next one?
The West Virginia pictured here is my West Virginia with the wackadoo Western camo.
Yes, I have a normal looking West Virginia, and you were like, nah, use this, and slowly slid this picture across the table.
This camo comes with an incredible custom horn that plays country Western music. And it also comes with Captain Dusty Rhodes. Highly recommended.
Can you still buy this camo? Is it even still available?
I have no idea. I don't deal in such trivialities.
Who cares? I've got it.
Malarkey would know. Malarkey,
Malarkey says
Malarkey, of course. Malarkey, of course, has this camo, and he has 3 others we've never seen.
they're kept in a drawer, folded nicely in acid-free packaging. Yeah, it's Take Me Home, Country Roads. Fantastic. Who is this streamer? Oh, I don't know, man. What's up, Pete33? Welcome. All right, so that's our West Virginia discussion. I definitely think you're going to see West Virginias out there. We saw these in Brawls, and Brawls really lends itself to a very aggressive forward-playing play style, and West Virginia is okay at that with its big guns, but it'll be really good where you don't have to push in quite so hard. It's going to be fantastic. So let's go ahead and jump down to our next battleship. This is our other #1 pick, and this one Skada threw into the can. I think Bayern is a really interesting boat, and before we're done, we'll talk about Bayern and PEF, and I want to show you guys the armor layouts on these 2 ships. But Skada, why don't you talk a little bit about Bayern, your pick here for #1?
Yeah, I like the Bayern a little bit better than the PEF at tier 6 for a couple reasons. One, the guns are bigger, so it's got 380s. It actually has less secondaries than PEF, but I still run mine with the secondary spec because that's just how I roll. It has adequate AA with 5 puffs at 61 continuous. It's not as fast as PEF. Concealment is 13.4 without a perk, so it's not super unstealthy, right? It's not like some of the other ships. Like with the perk, you can get it down to like a 12 something concealment, which is good. But my notes there, it has bigger PEFs that you're trading for some speed, some AA, but it does have better armor. And I like Bayern. When I first played German battleships, I remember not liking Bayern a lot, and then I played it more recently after I got more competent at the game, and I find it to be incredibly powerful at like tier. I like it a lot against other 6s. It doesn't have the biggest guns, but it's got big enough guns. And with the secondaries and the armor profile, I just find it to be pretty tough.
Yeah, I think Bayern is definitely, and I hadn't given it a second look. I said, "Why wouldn't you take PEF? That's ridiculous." And you're like, "Hang on, slow down there, Scooter. Let's talk about this." And you definitely kind of got me to take a look at this boat again. And one of the things that I was doing when I looked at these battleships was I was checking out the armor profiles. So what I want to do is take you guys over and we'll look at PEF's armor profile and we'll look at Bayern's as well. So let me switch to this. So this is Prinz Eitel Fredrich right here. It's kind of a slender boy, a little bit long, and that's that battle cruiser perspective, that battle cruiser kind of svelteness that it has. We grab the armor layout on this thing, and I'm going to hide the bow armor, and I'm going to hide the superstructure armor, and we'll hide the gun armor as well. So what we've got here is kind of a demonstration of the torpedo bulge protection, which I'll click on and off so you guys can see that. So you've got that torpedo bulge protection. This is your citadel down here. And then we've got a casemate slab right here. And in fact, if we blink that, or actually, excuse me, that's the, here's the casemate armor. So if we blink that on and off. So if we take a look at the front of Bayern, it's got this 32mm plate here and 60mm, I'm sorry, PEF, thank you. 32mm plate here on the front, 60mm on the side. We can wrap that 60mm up with this 32mm torpedo protection. And then when we hide that again, we're taking a look at this band here that we've got this armor belt here, the casemate armor of 270mm. But that is kind of the way the PEF is constructed. Anything you want to call my attention to on this, Skada, before we jump to Bayern?
No, again, 26mm bow armor, I think, on that bow plating, right?
Yeah. Yep,
And so
26.
that's kind of what we're looking at. If you're trying to bow tank in this, pretty much everything at this tier's got 26. It's got a little bit of it doesn't have much of an icebreaker strip, but it has a little bit of that waterline strip.
Yep, 120
But
mil.
you're talking about, can I get through 26 mil, and then what am I going to hit on the other side if I'm bow tanking? So if you take that armor away again, you see the Citadel Anthor ship, right? You've got that red patch that's pretty tough, but that right there isn't. That's what, 30? What's the lower one?
32 millimeters on the lower section.
Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, that's kind of what I'm looking at when I'm bow tanking in these, or when you're kind of at that angled tanking. If you're going to take shots, if a Mutsu's shooting you or a West Virginia is shooting you down the pipe, what's going to happen?
And so what we'll do is we'll leave the armor in this configuration. So this shows just the Citadel and the casemate armor, and I'm going to switch over to Bayern. And the difference here is pretty significant. Look at this. So that 32 mil plate is replaced with a 270 millimeter plate. And this is now shaped like a turtleback, right? It's got this downward slant here, which also increases the amount of this red armor, 250 millimeter armor that we've got here, which this lower portion is 50 mil. Let me go back to PEF real quick, where it is not 50 mil, it's 60 mil and 50 mil. But it doesn't have nearly as much below water protection, which the Bayern does. And the water is going to slow the shells down as they approach this area. Plus, it's going to have to go through the torpedo protection. Going back to Bayern, check this out. This goes, below the water by about a couple of mouse cursor heights, if you will. And again, angles down to catch more of that. And then if we take and slap the torpedo protection on the outside, we've got 26 mil, which is less than what we had on PEF. And behind that, again, is the 50 mil, but it's deeper in the water for those shells to require that access. And that front end is, and Skada's the one who pointed this out to me. I thought it was a great find, is 270 instead of 32, like we were just looking. So much improved armor profile on Bayern. Skada, any thoughts you want to throw out about that?
Yeah, that's just the point, right? You're going to eat pens in the bow on this, but they're not going to make it into the Citadel.
Yeah.
Whereas on PEF you can get Citadel down the bow probably, which is sketchy. Like that's a problem for tanking, and that's the difference between a battle cruiser and a battleship, right? It is what it is. That's kind of why I like Bayern better in this role and how I play it. I don't. We're talking about ships that have been getting games since like 2017, probably. So it's not like these are revelations. But
No.
when for purposes of our conversation, that's why I like Bayern better than PEF in this role. Like if I had to only take one battleship, and I don't know that it's Bayern, but if it was me in our clan team and it was my turn to roll battleship, I'd probably take Bayern.
Yeah.
Because I think it offers me a little bit more than West Virginia because it's a little bit more mobile.
The handling on Bayern's pretty good too. But also, yeah, this icebreaker, just a little bit thicker than in PEF, right? It's just this thin strip that's only underwater. Bayern makes that 3 times as tall, basically. Now, Bayern does suffer from, let me switch back to presentation mode. Bayern does suffer from the non-premium captain concern, which a couple of dollars can solve. Or, you can just stick it out with a 10 or 12 point captain that you've managed to level up on your Bayern. So it's not a huge concern. And like I said, when you think about moving a captain, yes, you got to leave them there through October, but it's, I think, $2 or $3 to move a captain from a high tier ship down here. And if you're comfortable doing that and you don't mind spending the dollars, go ahead and do it. If you don't want to give Wargaming any money, don't bother, but get a 12 or 14 point captain on there, spend some free XP, something to make your Bayern competitive and capable. Because I think Battleship's one of those positions where a destroyer might be able to get away with a 10 or 12 point captain, but a battleship, you really want as many of those perks and things that are going to keep you alive and keep you dishing it up as long as possible.
All of the battleships we're talking about would be really hard to run less than 14 points into the current meta and the way this stuff's set up.
Yep. I totally
in my
agree.
opinion, I think
Totally
you'd be
agree.
really doing your team a disservice if you had less than 14 points.
So it's worth a couple of bucks in my book to, if you're going to do Bayern, to bring down a 16, 18, 20, 21 point captain if you can get one. And if you can't, push to that 14 somehow. Recommend it for sure.
One other quick note I have on Bayern and PEF, and this is just like random noodlings, right? If you've been paying attention to developments of World of Warships, one of the new lines that they announced in the dev blog recently is actually a completely new battleship line for the Germans.
Oh yeah.
That is all kind of a battle cruiser line. And PEF, Prinz Eitel Fredrich, I don't think she was ever built, but her sister ship, the Mackinson, was laid down. And Mackinson is going to be a tech tree boat in that new line. And I think it's a tier 6. I can't remember, but I think it's a tier 6. I'd be really curious because some of the talk on that new tech tree line is that it's for brawling, that it's going to have secondaries. There's going to be torpedoes and stuff. But I'm really curious if Mackinson's going to have a difference in its armor profile from the PEF because of that front plate and how that will take shots down the pipe if you're trying to brawl in it. And I really wish Malarkey could tell me all about those ships, but I know he can't.
Yeah, every once in a while you get a super tester in here, and they just button up real quick. But no, I'd love to know more about that. I'm excited for the new German battleship line, and yeah, I'm curious what the difference is. But even if they're not, pros, cons, whatever they are, what are the differences going to be between those two sister ships, other than the, you know, secondary bent that the other's going to have, which will probably make it different. And then they talked about torpedoes on that line too. So we'll see when the time comes and when those things show up in game. But until then, we're left to speculate and wonder. Thanks for nothing, Malarkey. Okay, so that is our battleship there. We do have a couple of honorable mentions that we'd like to talk about. I wanted to trot out the Arizona. It's an older ship. It's been in the game for a long time, and we used to joke about how this ship was really, really powerful. We called it the Secret Tier 7, at least in my local circle of people who play World of Warships. And we like this boat a lot. It is not a West Virginia 41, but maybe you're a real bad shot. Well, the Arizona has 12 guns instead of 8, so you'll hit more often if you're not as good of a shot. Maybe you're a data nerd, and technically, if you look at Arizona with more guns and things, it has more DPM than West Virginia, but it has 356 millimeter guns, so it's not going to pen as often as West Virginia will. Arizona actually has a turtleback armor and stuff that West Virginia doesn't have. In fact, I'll just take a quick, I'll breeze in and look at those really quickly. Let me switch back over because I think this is kind of interesting. West Virginia trades those big guns. Turn off the bow armor. This is your Citadel and your casemate. And if we go to Arizona, you've got a turtleback. And look at how deep under the water line that goes on Arizona, which you do not have in West Virginia. This is basically at the water line. And if you can get below that, 45 millimeters. There is some torpedo bulge built around there. This is 343 and that's 203. But if we bring those along with Arizona, you've got the 26 millimeters of torpedo bulge on top of 343 and 203. So it's actually 26 millimeters more armor than what you're looking at on West Virginia, which is kind of interesting. Somebody who's a real big armor nerd might be able to tell me some ways that the Arizona is weak. So by all means, don't consider this the only fact of the matter, but it's worth looking into these things if you're going to spend a lot of time in competitive play with these ships. Going back to presentation mode. It's got a few more hit points than West Virginia. It's got a lower detect at 12.6 kilometers, and it's $160 cheaper than West Virginia if you don't already own the boat. So, there's reasons to look at the Arizona. Skada said earlier, in clan battles, overmatch is king, and that is a true statement, I think, by and large. So West Virginia still might be a better choice for you and your clan, but Arizona is not ready to be retired yet. Bad stuff, again, 356s. They're not going to pen as much as West Virginia's. It's really slow, and it's got bad AA, just like the Mutsu. So Arizona is kind of, it's out there. I don't think you're going to see a lot of them because of its age, and because bigger guns are available, and we love that overmatch. But I don't know, Scott, any Arizona thoughts, or is that another one you're just going to leave for me?
Yeah, no, I like the camo on it with the red top
turrets.
Cool. I think it looks neat. I don't have anything against Arizona. It just isn't isn't one I would play.
Yeah.
The things that you say that are pros about it, I agree with, but
it's hard to overcome those 410s, man. It really is.
I look at all. There's a lot of other. There's a lot of other battleships that I have that we aren't going to talk about. Like I would probably want to play Warspite or Queen Elizabeth before I would want to play Arizona, with both of their 380s and their rudder, especially the rudder on Warspite. And we really aren't talking about those ships at all.
That's true.
I hate to say it, but I might also want to play Normandy before I'd play Arizona because it's faster.
I like the Normandy, but I can't usually say that in mixed company. People are like, what? Normandy?
I would probably play Arizona over the Dunkirk Q. Because Dunkirk bugs me more than it should.
Atari Beer Pong says the long range dispersion for Arizona is bad, and the shelf light time. And I think that's true. The dispersion for Arizona and West Virginia are the same at 246 meters in my configurations. But New Mexico not New Mexico, I'm sorry. West Virginia can do that.
I think both of those ships. That's one of the things on West Virginia that makes it a tier 6 Colorado. It has a crappier Sigma, and so you're going to have more problems with horizontal. You're gonna have more problems with horizontal dispersion, but if they catch a shell, it's gonna pen because it's so big, and you may not
Yeah,
have that against
yeah.
other battleships with the 356s on here. I understand why you guys like Arizona, and I think it's of a time. And we have a lot of conversations when we talk about World of Warships that some of the takes that you have are of a time that I think maybe is gone, and that's okay. And then you will go out and we'll play it. You'll prove me wrong, and that's cool too.
Yeah, and
Um,
again, I don't know that Arizona is going to be anybody's top shelf pick, right? I'm just saying, hey guys, remember this boat? It's not garbage. But again, I think most people are if you're reaching for one of these, you're going to grab that West Virginia. And I don't hold any grudge for anybody who does that. I think it's a great pick.
My
It
favorite
was my
thing
number
about
one
this
pick.
slide, yeah, my favorite thing about this slide is the Admiral Piet quote.
It's an older premium, sir, but it checks out. Yeah. Well, that's what we've got for Arizona. I think we have one more honorable mention. Izmail, also with an Admiral Piet quote. Skada, this one was yours, and I think it's a good
This
one
was
too.
this was originally a ship that I had in my top three, and then I kind of pulled it because I wanted to experiment with Andrea Doria. Um, as far as tech tree battleships go, it's hard to leave out the Russian one because they tend to be overpowered. And so
Totally.
that's our first point: is
Totally.
Russian bias is real. Again, this is a ship with 356s, but the 356s on Ismail react a lot differently than the 356s on Arizona.
Yeah.
The AP shells are much faster. It has less dispersion. It's still got a lot of dispersion, but I don't think it's as bad. This ship has a better AA rating with a longer AA range, although I don't find its AA to be that amazing when I fight them in carriers. Um, it's a faster ship. It goes 28.5 knots. Um, bad stuff. Like you said, the gun angles aren't great because there's some weird turret placement in the layout on this ship. It's got these four turrets that are kind of spread out or in weird ways. The concealment's not great. And again, it requires a dedicated captain. But if you're like a hell bent like Russian battleship guy, you're just going to throw Kuznetsov on it and pay the penalty
Right.
to do so, and ride around and be trumping around with Kuznetsov and doing stuff.
Yeah. Totally.
And again, we found a fun Admiral Piet quote on this one. I used Admiral Piet's last words from in Return of the Jedi. Uh, uh, for this one. But yeah, I think Ismail, and I think we'll see these because again, Russian battleships are evergreen in regards to being overpowered, and this is no exception to that.
Yeah, Ismail's strong. If you get caught out by an Ismail, it'll delete carriers or cruisers and stuff. Like you'll have a really rough day if Ismail gets 12 356 barrels on you. One thing too, and you and I talked about this the other day, is the AA rating is 63, but it only has 3 puffs. I think when we were looking up at PEF, it has 5 puffs.
Yeah, PEF and
PEF
Bayern
has
both
5
have a
flak
lot more
puffs. Yeah.
puffs. Yeah,
And so there's something to be said for that. It gives more obstacles for those CV captains to avoid,
yeah,
and
and
so
like we
on.
talked about earlier, Issei has 6 puffs, right? And so
Yeah,
sometimes when you look at that number, that AA rating, I don't know how that's tabulated. That's why I was looking at stuff like contiguous damage and how many puffs. Be the stuff that
yeah.
really actually matters. I don't know always how they figure that out, but
No, it's worth kind of digging just a little bit deeper. P33 man asks, what does puffs mean? So there are basically flak puffs. Your AA guns will shoot these big black flak clouds in the air, and the airplanes of the carrier coming in, if they hit those flak puffs, they take a large amount of damage. And so they can try to fly around them, but the more of those clouds that exist in the air, the more trouble the carrier captain's going to have avoiding them or not taking that big damage. So we say puffs just as a shorthand, basically to describe the flak AA.
yeah, like a lot of flak bursts is what's going to stop a carrier from being able to do multiple strikes on you, right? When you talk about continuous damage, where I think that comes into play, you get the flak explosions. If they fly through that, if a carrier captain gets caught by that, he's going to lose some planes in his flight. He's going to make a drop on you. The game's designed now, no matter what, they're going to make a drop on you. Um,
Right.
then the continuous damage that he's in while he's circling around is what's going to stop him from making that second drop, because you might be lucky enough that your gunners take out the rest of the flight at that point. Um, and so when I'm talking about having more puffs is more better, right? If you've played carriers at all, or if you've been attacked by carriers, flak is really what knocks the squadrons out of the sky. Heavy continuous damage is what finishes off planes and it gets you plane kills. But like you could have something 200 continuous damage and no puffs or 1 puff, and you're going to get dropped constantly.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. You're gonna do the big alpha. It's alpha strike damage kind of against airplanes, really. Although it's sort of all out of your control, so a lot of RNG and stuff involved, and the carrier captain's approach is gonna be factored in as well. But yeah, you're right. You're gonna hit those guys with the puffs. Their planes are gonna get weak, and then the continuous is gonna go and bust up the rest of those planes. That's for sure. Yeah, I think you're going to see Izmail's out there. I tweeted out this morning. I was like, "Hey, y'all, come swing by the thing. We're going to talk about battleships." And I had a guy come back and say, "Well, it's obviously going to be T61, Graf Spee, and Izmail, right? Oh wait, Graf Spee is out of the game, right, or out of the competition." But the obvious picks that player made was Izmail and T61. So you're definitely going to see people grabbing the Izmail, dusting it off, slapping a good captain on there, probably Kuznetsov, and getting out to sea. So we'll see him. You'll definitely see Izmails. Hey, thanks for joining us for this World of Warships clan battles discussion. We hope you'll find the videos on the other classes and watch those as well. If you liked what you saw here, share it with a friend, send it to your clan mates, hit that like button, subscribe, and again, comment down below. And of course, we'd love to have you join us at twitch.tv/ClydePlaysLive. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you in the next video. No means experts, so we want to know what you guys have to think. Have to think? What does that even mean?